Gonna start setting this tank up. Used to be in our shop. It's a great spot. Very easy to enjoy this tank. Now, when you're designing an aquarium, you really want to design it to be easier, not designing it to be harder. So with here, we've got a hood that can't be removed. And so as far as the optics concerned, that looks great. But as far as functionality is concerned, it definitely sucks. So just consider that whenever you're designing an aquarium. You want to make it as easy as possible to get in, not as hard as possible to get in. And in this case, it's like way too hard to get into. Now, a filter is governed by the media that's inside the filter, and the quality of your fish is 50% water quality and 50% food quality. So making sure you're feeding very high quality foods and making sure you have a good filter is very important. And the media that goes in the filter is super important. So that's called Marine Pure, which is the best biological media on the market. Then I'm going to add some polyfilter, which is the best mechanical chemical media on the market. So a filter is not just a filter. A filter is the media that's inside the filter. And most filters can easily be upgraded by adding Marine Pure and polyfilter. This can be surprising how long these big bloody tanks take to fill up. Okay, so for an aquarium like this, the first thing we're going to need to make sure you've got is some water ager. So the water ager is for taking chlorine out of the water. So you sprinkle a tiny little bit of water ager every time that you put new water in the aquarium. So you definitely treat the first time, you definitely treat water changes, and you also want to treat water when you top it up. And when you do a water change, which is remove some water and put some water back in, it's really better to top the tank up before you do the water change. That way the dissolved salts and so forth can be a little bit more consistent. Now the next thing that you're going to need is to be aware of your carbonate hardness level, because your KH will stabilize your pH. So you want to be aware of what your requirements are for the fish you keep. We also recommend GH salts, and these are going to help immune system and help body slime and so forth. We also encourage good bacteria. So the good bacteria make sure that the bacteria that grows in the filter is capable of breaking down the waste from your fish. And once you open these products up, they're better off in the fridge. They tend to last longer. Now, fish keeping is 50% about water quality and 50% about fish food. So making sure that you have a high quality fish food. This one here is my favorite fish food because it is very clean food and it is slow cooked. So this one's actually cold extruded, and it's got the probiotic bacteria in it. And the probiotic bacteria in this food means that when the fish poo, the bacteria in the poo eats the poo. Now, I'm also going to recommend that you feed some Danichi. When it comes to pure quality, I think Danichi is the best. When it comes to clean, I think that Probiotics by New Life Spectrum is the best. And when you're feeding your fish, it's really important to pay attention to the belly of the fish. And over time, if you notice any of the fish getting a skinny belly, then you need to feed more. If you notice any of the fish getting fat, you need to feed less. And you also need to pay attention to what fish are getting skinny and fat. So if you notice the bigger fish are getting skinny, then you might want to add a bigger pellet. And that doesn't mean you stop the smaller pellet, but add a bigger pellet. And if you notice the little fish getting skinny, you might want to add a smaller pellet. And the same with floating pellets and sinking pellets. So if you're getting little fish, then you might want to feed a flake food, but a high quality wafer is a very good idea as well. And if you are going to buy a wafer, go for these New Life Spectrum ones because they're water stable, so they take 24 hours before they start to break down. And so dropping one of these into the bottom so your fish can scavenge on them during the day is a really good idea. So I generally feed the fish about what they eat in 30 seconds. So there's no food left after 30 seconds, about 5 times a week. So not every day. So the next thing is water quality. So making sure you have good quality food and making sure that you understand your water. So your pH, that's your acid levels. Over time, the fish tend to make the water more acidic. So you want to make sure your pH is not too low. Your KH is your carbonate hardness, and that will help to stabilize your pH. Once again, depending on the fish that you have, you definitely don't ever want 0. Then you've got ammonia, which is first degree fish waste. So the food, fish will eat the food, then the fish will produce waste in the form of ammonia. The ammonia should encourage the filter to grow good bacteria. The good bacteria that grows in the filter should break the ammonia into nitrite. Then other bacteria should grow in the filter to break the nitrite into nitrate. And providing you've got high quality filter media such as this tank does, like the Marine Pure, then you should have a capacity for denitrification. Otherwise, water changes will also help to get rid of your nitrate. If you have ammonia or nitrite, then that's a filter problem. You need to make sure you have plenty of oxygen in the system to make sure the filter can be effective. And if you have enough filtration, ammonia and nitrite should not be a problem. If nitrate comes up, then you either need to feed better quality foods or have less fish or do more water changes. So we've also got a gravel cleaner. When you do a water change, you never want to take the good water out of the top of the aquarium. You want to take the water out of the gravel, and that gets all the crap out of the gravel and helps to clean. It gives much better bang for buck when you're water changing. Then I've got a net for catching fish, particularly if you get a troublesome fish, you might need to catch it out. And we've also got a fine net. I reckon every aquarium should have a fine net, and this is just for catching out any debris that may be in the aquarium. And making sure you've got a magnet cleaner. These flippers are absolutely fabulous. So they've got this blade on them, and they do a wonderful job cleaning your glass. So there's some bits and pieces that will go with this aquarium, which we're waiting to fill up. No sign of leaking. It's all encouraging. Now the other thing is when you have these filters that are underneath the aquarium, it's really important that you know which one your inlet strainer is. And you always want to turn that tap on first, because you want to allow your water momentum to fill up the canister so it doesn't get an airlock. Don't turn your taps on at the same time, or you can get an airlock. So you'd want to actually have your inlet, you want to open that, you want to have them all closed, then you want to open up the inlet first, then slowly open up the outlet. So then by then there's already momentum, because you really want to pull all the bubbles. You need to get all the air out of the filter before you turn the filter on. It's really important that you prime these filters, and this one does have a priming mechanism, so you can pump on that a whole bunch of times. Make sure there's no water in there. Make sure there's no air in there and that's full of water before you turn it on, or it's not going to work. Now once this aquarium is full, then it's all treated, then I would recommend either testing your water or bringing a sample of water to us, and we can check the water and bring a video of the tank running so we can see everything going on in the aquarium. And we also want to see all your bits and pieces, any jars, bottles, foods and so forth you've got for the tank. And then we can let you get a small amount of fish. Then you want to wait a couple of weeks, let the good bacteria grow from the last lot of fish. You can dose some good bacteria that should be getting kept in your fridge. Then you can add a little bit more fish, maybe another half a dozen or so. Then wait another couple of weeks, then add a little bit more fish, and you want to slowly get more and more fish, and not add too many fish at a time, because if you add too many fish at a time, you might end up with ammonia and nitrite. Then you might lose some fish. So that's why it's really important to test your water before you add more fish. And every time you add new fish, you've got to make sure you acclimatise them on the top for half an hour before you let them go. and make sure that that you don't feed the tank for a couple of days after adding new fish. So this filter is currently filling up with water. It's very important if you plumb these filters underneath the aquarium, you've got to have taps. And you really want to make sure that you open the tap that goes into the filter. Then you can open the tap that goes out of the filter so it fills up. Under every canister filter, it's a very good idea to have a drip tray, which is just a tray that you put under the filter, because whenever you clean the filters, always just a little bit of water comes out, and over time that may destroy the cabinet. So it's very good just to catch that bit of water. And any cabinetry like this, it's quite a good idea to get some vents in it, because otherwise any condensation that builds up in these cabinets create moisture, and moisture and electricity is not so fun. So I'd be thinking about drilling a couple of holes in the side and just letting the cabinet breathe a lot better. Also will allow the pump to make sure it's pulling in some nice fresh air, because the pump's going to be blowing a lot of water into the aquarium in this particular case. Now, if you are going to run an open-topped aquarium, it's really good to try and do safety precautions for things like lights falling into the aquarium. Any precautions you can do to stop things accidentally falling in is a good thing. Very easy, and just gives you that little bit of extra safety. Now, aeration is very important for an aquarium, but particularly in these cabinets where it's quite enclosed, something like an air pump can really resonate and almost become harmonic like a guitar. So some air pumps are quieter than others, and as they get older they tend to get noisier. So I'd think about replacing this one for a nice new super quiet pump, and make sure it's on something soft, and that will drastically reduce this sound, which at the moment is getting amplified somewhat like a guitar. Now these lights are going to have ballasts, and these ballasts are going to be down here and they'll get quite warm. So that's another reason why having vents in here is quite good, because you don't want this area getting warm from the electrical ballasts, and also any potential water which might spill in here. You don't really want a moist electrical atmosphere. That's why you really want vents, and you could even put a fan on the vent for sucking the air out, which would be even better. So with these flippers, if you're going to leave them in the tank, where possible, try to keep the blade out of water. Probably keeps them alive that tiny bit longer, because everything rusts eventually. Okay, so the filter is now on, and this filter also has a heater in it, and right now the temperature is saying 17.8 degrees. I never totally trust thermometers that are in heaters. I'll always have a second thermometer, but this will heat the water, and in order to heat the water, to set it, you hold set down, and then you hold it down until it shows you what it's set for, and in this case it's 26, which is perfect. But if you want it up or down, you can just press the plus or minus to change it. So it's very easy to set the setting, and then we just need to give this time to get to 25. Now if you ever want to check if your aquarium's level, the easiest thing to do is measure the water level in each of the four corners, and if they're all the same, then you can assume the aquarium is level. If the aquarium's not level, then it won't tend to last as long. So you always want to make sure the aquarium's on a flat level surface. Now just be aware that when you first put driftwood into the aquarium, it's going to float. So some sink relatively quickly, but some seem to take a long time to start sinking. And then just be aware that the driftwood can discolor the water. And if you want the water clearer, you can try activated carbon, like Biochemsorb is very good for clearing it. And some driftwood will stop creating a tannin that's the tea colour in the water, and others won't. Others will just seem to keep going. So adding some fake plants in here will probably look nice too. And over time, if the fake plants start looking a bit crappy, then what you want to do is just grab the fake plants, put them in the sun, then flip them over, leave them for another day, and then hit them with the hose, and they're usually good as new. Now some rocks are actually magnetic, and you don't ever want a magnetic rock magneting to your magnet cleaner, otherwise you'll scratch the crap out of your glass. So just be very aware of that. You never want to get rocks caught under that, because that's not so fun. So I'll just pull those rocks out, and just be careful when you're with your gravel. If you hear a scratchy sound, then deal with it before you get scratch glass.